Coming up next, SPNN's Neighborhood News. Hi, I'm Sherine Onukwuwe. Welcome to SPNN's Neighborhood News. On this program, we interview district councils and we go out in the neighborhood and find out what people are talking about. St. Paul has a history of strong community and neighborhood participation. The district council system is a big part of that. There are 17 councils, each representing a different area of St. Paul. The district councils are independent organizations, but they do get some funding from the city as well as other sources like grants and donations. Much of the work being done by the councils is done by volunteers, community members, who want to participate in the life of their neighborhood and their community. On today's program, we talk with representatives from District Council 4, 12, and 15. Stay tuned. We're back with Kyle Mianulli, and we are discussing District Council 12. Hi, Kyle. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
Why don't you tell us a bit about where you are? I hear some background noise.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm talking to you from the District 12 Council office. We're located in the South St. Anthony Park Recreation Center. Right now it's summer, and the space is alive with children soccer programs.
Okay.
So they have a lot of youth programming for soccer.
Okay, great. So District 12, tell us exactly where that is and how those geographical borders are defined.
Sure. So District 12, or the St. Anthony Park neighborhood, is located on the west border of St. Paul. We're kind of tucked up into the corner here, where the western border is just past Highway 280, right along Emerald Street. It goes to the north past the railroad tracks up to Hoyt Avenue. So the University of Minnesota St. Paul campus is located partially in our neighborhood, and it goes to the east to Cleveland Avenue and to the south to Highway 94 approximately.
Okay. Do you can you talk a little bit about if there is, in your opinion, an identity about the neighborhood, and how would you describe that as a feeling? You know.
Sure, definitely. So one of the ways that residents and we like to think of this neighborhood as kind of an urban village in a way. So there's a very close, tight-knit community. Neighbors on the whole are very active in environmental things, transportation projects, basically doing whatever they can to help green up the space, to work towards a more sustainable future. We also do a lot of work with land development. So our population tends to skew just a little bit older than some of the other neighborhoods, but people are very passionate about community here, and they're really close to one another and are very willing and eager to get involved in ways that they can help improve the neighborhood.
You mentioned a sustainable future.
Mm-hmm.
If you could talk about some of the projects that you have going on. One that sounds particularly interesting, community solar.
Yeah.
What exactly is that?
Yeah. So we have a group in the neighborhood that's a kind of working group of the St. Anthony Park Community Council Environmental Committee. And they are called Transition Town, which Transition Town is a broader, actually a global movement where neighborhoods, towns, and even cities across the world are really thinking intentionally about how they can improve the sustainability of their particular areas. So part of the Transition Town group in St. Anthony Park has been working very hard on a community solar array. And this is essentially an idea that up to 35 residents can buy into and invest in a solar array. It's a number of solar panels that would be placed on the top of buildings that have good solar exposure, so they get a lot of sunlight. And then So people invest, and it can be either equal shares or differential shares. People can invest more, some people can invest less. But they essentially started an LLC, a limited liability corporation, to make this dream a reality. So the LLC is established, and right now they are working to nail down a location to actually install the solar panels. And so we've been talking to industrial businesses. We've been working with the city to possibly get a solar array on the top of some city buildings, like the Langford Park Recreation Center is at the top of the list. But we've gotten a ton of interest, and people are really passionate about wanting to be able to have solar panels that are paid for and invested for by the community on their buildings. So now it's just a matter of picking one and going for it.
How do you think that'll change the culture of the community, you know, the way that people do things by having, you know, more sustainable energy?
Right. So, I mean, as far as changing the culture of the neighborhood itself, I'm not sure that it would have a huge impact because we're already very environmentally minded. A lot of people in the neighborhood are working on a wide variety of sustainable projects. One thing that's neat about this, though, is that it would really allow people to invest directly in a sustainable future. So there's lots of energy around solar energy and other sustainable initiatives in the neighborhood. But as far as being able to actually get involved and become personally invested in that future, this is a fantastic opportunity to be able to do that.
Okay, great. One thing also is going on with the Central Corridor or along the Central Corridor is something called accessory dwelling units. Talk about that and what that is exactly and how, you know, what difference you think that'll make.
Sure, definitely. It's a very hot issue in the neighborhood right now. So there's a differentiation that needs to be made. The city itself is pursuing zoning code changes within a half-mile of the Central Corridor, which would allow for the construction of accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, is the abbreviation that everyone's using now. And that's a separate piece of legislation that's being pursued in the north part of St. Anthony Park, which is north of the railroad tracks. And there, a group of residents have gotten together and for the last year really have been researching other initiatives that allow accessory dwelling units to be built on properties and how it's impacted the neighborhood, what the sustainability factor can be from that. And it really started as a way for the aging population in the neighborhood to be able to age in place. So, you know, when you're raising a family, you need a much larger house with a bigger carbon footprint that consumes more energy. As you get older and your kids move out to college, go out and start their own lives, you often don't need as big of a house as you once did. At the same time, a lot of those people have been living in this neighborhood a very long time and want to stay here as long as they can. But it might just not be realistic for them to do the upkeep and maintenance that a large house requires, or they just feel that they don't need that much space anymore. So instead of having to move out of the neighborhood, they would be able to construct an accessory dwelling unit on their property. And this can either be attached to the main residence, or it can be, you know, like a small cottage house in the backyard or along the back alley. And what the idea is the aging people in the household would either live in the smaller ADU unit themselves, and perhaps their family can live in the larger one as they raise their own kids, or the elderly couple or person can stay in the main residence and have a caretaker live in the ADU so that they have that support close when they need it.
Is there also something being suggested or proposed to help people build these structures?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
That if they're adding, so you're saying that someone who has lived in the community, say, you know, in a house for 30 years, financially, you know, it could kind of be somewhat of a burden to try to restructure your home or add on to it. You know, is there any proposal to, I guess, you know, kind of offset some of those costs for homeowners, you know, who might be considering that? Okay.
Right. Good
Okay.
question. No, there's not any proposal currently for financial assistance in constructing an ADU. That would have to be completely initiated and carried out by the current resident or someone connected to them.
Okay. Well, another exciting thing going on is the enterprise project.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so talk about that.
The Creative Enterprise Zone is an initiative that started within the St. Anthony Park Community Council. And it started about 3 or 4 years ago when we saw a big surge of construction, ostensibly related to the arrival of the Green Line in the neighborhood along University Avenue. There's a building right at the intersection of University and Raymond Avenues called the Chittenden and Eastman Building. Historically, it has been an artist space. So there were a number of woodworkers, painters, videographers, essentially creators and makers of all sorts utilizing that space. It was rather run down. It wasn't, kept up, but in a way, that's exactly what creative people need. For instance, a painter doesn't need a bright, shiny space with clean white walls. They need more of an industrial, rugged space that they can sling paint on the walls, or if you're a woodworker, cover the floor with sawdust and not have to worry too much about that. So what happened is it's a beautiful old historic building that was purchased by a property development company. It was converted into market rate apartments. We're very happy to have, it's now called the C&E Loft building. We're very happy to have them in the community. It's really a beautiful building. There are wonderful people that are living there. But we were a little wary of this becoming a trend in the area, because historically, many different creative types have lived and worked here, and it's really been a hub of creativity and creative enterprise. So the initiative started as a way to preserve those types of makers and creative entrepreneurs in the neighborhood, to make sure that rising rents and new developments didn't push them out, because they just bring such a wonderful flavor and character to the neighborhood. So for the past 3 or 4 years, we've been working with the city, with the community. We have a working board made up of people working for nonprofits in the neighborhood, designers. Forecast Public Art is a big part of it. And we've really been doing what we can to establish this area as a hub of creative enterprise. We've been rather successful as of late in branding this area as that. For example, the city of St. Paul recently included us in the comprehensive plan. So this is now identified as the creative enterprise zone in the comprehensive plan of St. Paul. Just last week, we unveiled a new billboard project at the intersection of University Avenue and Vandalia. And it is a photograph from a very famous photographer who lives and works here, Alex Soth. He's appeared in the New York Times Magazine. He's done shows all over the world. And so through working with him, we chose an image that actually depicts a clothesline coming from a houseboat in the middle of winter. And the way that, the reason he says that he chose that image was it symbolizes that creativity can flourish anywhere, which we very much believe in. And in a way, this billboard symbolizes a new starting line for creativity in St. Paul. So we had a big press event with that, and there's been articles published in MinPost, NPR, City Pages is about to come out with one. So we're really happy with the attention that that's garnered, because one of the continual challenges that we deal with is there really is just a huge plethora of creative people here making a living by their creative capacities. But driving through this area, you wouldn't necessarily know that. A lot of them are away from the line of sight, and there's not a lot of outward visual representations of the creative work that happens here. So this is really an initiative to kind of make the invisible visible again, and to really start to draw attention to this area as a destination for creative people making a living by their creative capacities.
The structure of St. Paul's district councils, the way it works, is pretty unique. How do people get involved?
That's a great question. So the first way that you can kind of get introduced to our work is by going to our website for the St. Anthony Park Community Council. That is sapcc.org. And we are continually updating that with stories and listings of the latest initiative, what our committees are up to, and other kind of features and profiles of people doing good work in the neighborhood, as well as just kind of what's happening in general with things. From there, you can sign up for our regular e-news, which is an email newsletter that goes out once a month, where there's a lot of that same kind of content. It's really the best way to keep up to par with what's happening in the neighborhood. Now, there's also another website for the Creative Enterprise Zone specifically. So if that's the area of work that you're particularly interested in, you can go to creativeenterprisezone.org. And again, we are continually updating that with the latest initiative. We frequently do profiles of artists or artisans doing things in the neighborhood, as well as what we're up to with the work behind the Creative Enterprise Zone. Can I do a quick plug for our Facebook and Twitter too?
Sure.
In addition to both of those websites, we have a number of social media accounts that are very active. And that's a way for community members to directly interact with us and with each other. So we have a Facebook and a Twitter account for the St. Anthony Park Community Council. That address is SAP Park Council for Twitter. And if you just search for St. Anthony Park Community Council on Facebook, you'll find that one. And for Creative Enterprise Zone, we have the Twitter handle @CreativeEntZone. ENT Zone, and we also have 2 Facebook accounts for that initiative as well.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us today.
Sure. I was happy to be here.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you. You too.
We'll be back. That's it for this month. Thanks for watching.